Hello and welcome back to the New Dig Norfolk Gardener channel, and to our back garden, which resembles an allotment. We live in the fine county of Norfolk, midway between the fine city of Norwich and the coastal town of Great Yarmouth, and we garden in zone 9B. Today we're going to be talking potatoes and their ongoing maintenance. Now, I went on about knowing what your last frost date was in the previous video we did on potatoes, so if you want to know how to plant them, especially in a new dig garden, then go back and find that video and you'll be able to see exactly what we did there. This year has been a particularly fortunate year for us here in Norfolk. We saw no frost during the month of April, and we haven't had any late frosts in May, which can occur. So we haven't had to rush out like they do at Wimbledon with the covers to cover everything up and try and protect them, or put some mulch over them to try and protect them. We've had none of that this year, and as a result the potatoes have grown really large and really big, and they're doing really well. But once they're up and out of the ground, there is a little bit of maintenance that needs to be done. Actually, if you look at these here, this is a main crop potato actually, Maris piper. You can see that the flower buds are here. When you see flowers on potatoes, it's usually an indication that there are tubers underneath. However, they will be very small, and they've still got a fair bit of growing to do as yet. But not all potatoes flower, so you can't just rely on whether something's flowered that potatoes will be there. And of course the last thing you want to do is to dig a whole plant up just to see how your potatoes are getting on. So one way you can see how they're getting on is to have a look around. Have a bit of a rummage around, pull some of the soil away. If you've never seen particularly how potatoes grow, they send out these feeder roots. Hello Poppy. And you can see that there are potatoes there, but they're certainly not ready. In fact, there's a slightly larger one here which is a bit deeper, which we can take a look at. There you go. So this is a first early called Casablanca, and first earlies are normally ready around June time, so these won't be far away. So I would say in another 3-4 weeks time we'll be enjoying some nice new potatoes. So let's just cover those back up. So just by doing that you can see what stage your potatoes are at. And first earlies want to be round about the size of a hen's egg. And as I say, just by pulling some of the soil, if you're not no dig like us, or in our case pulling some of the compost away, just to see how they're getting on, see what sort of size they are, then you can make a decision, do I pull the plant up, or do I just harvest some of the larger ones? I've known people to do that. They just harvest some of the larger ones and leave the rest to grow on. The choice is yours really, and it depends on whether, do you want that land? Are you waiting on that land for something else to go in? If it is, then you can start pulling the plants up. But if you don't need that space and you can let the others grow on, equally that's fine too. So traditionally with potatoes you leave a 2 to 3 foot gap between each row, and the idea of that is so you can get in between the row and pull the soil up and mound the potatoes up, which is also known as earthing up. And the reason why that's done primarily is because potatoes form quite near the surface of the potato plant, and as they expand and grow bigger they push their way through the soil. And of course, if they're exposed to light, they will go green. If they go green, then they are mildly poisonous. And what you'll then need to do is to cut some of the green away, and of course you're wasting some of your potato. So the act of earthing up will stop those tubers going green. But we don't do that in the no dig garden. I normally get a pot. You can use a spade or a shovel, and I take some of our compost, fill the pot up, and then I go to the potato plant and I just drop that around each plant. And then as these tubers start to form, they will be covered. And it's a job that we do need to do. This is a variety called Charlotte, and you can see it's now starting to think about flowering. It's got flower buds on it. And because we've grown this variety before, what we do know is that when they do start to flower, we do know that there are potatoes under here. In fact, here is one is here without me even poking around too much. So there's a Charlotte. There's the feeder root again. So, as I say, it's a job that does want doing. If you've got plenty of compost on your soil, you can just drag some over and do it like that. But I've got compost, so as I say, what we'll do is just fill a pot up. It's about a 1 litre pot, and then spread it around the plant. And that's all that we do in the New Dig garden. There's none of this heavy work of dragging the soil up around it, which makes you really tired, especially if you've got lots of potatoes. And you can see over there I've got lots of main crop potatoes. And I've already done the first earlies, which we looked at a little while ago, so I'm going to crack on with this now. We've earthed up all of our potatoes, or as we like to call it, composting up. And that should save the tubers from receiving direct sunlight and going green. Now really, from now onwards, with the potatoes, they've been composted up, there's not really too much more to do. Just let them grow on and produce their tubers. We saw earlier that there's tubers under those first earlies. They're now coming to a time when they're going to be really near harvest. So within the next 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, we should be enjoying our first new early potatoes. So like most things in our garden, we don't tend to go around watering everything per se. Unless of course it really has been a really dry month. Thankfully May, like April, has been kind to us. In April we didn't get the frost that would check the potatoes, but in May we've had several downpours and, as you can see at the moment, lots of sunshine. So the plants are getting all the water that they need. But also with potatoes, their roots will go down in search of the water into the ground. So really the only time that I see any benefit or value to watering them is as they're coming near to harvest. And that indeed is when we water our potatoes. 2 to 3 weeks when you think you're going to be getting them, especially with the first earlies, you want to be watering so that they can bulk up a little bit more and get to the size of those lovely hen's eggs potatoes that we can then enjoy on our dinner plates. Now, the only other thing that we have to be mindful of is blight. Now, I know there was quite a lot of blight about last year because a lot of people were reporting it. Thankfully, we never saw it. And it could be something to do with the fact that we live right on the east coast almost, and most of our weather systems come in west to east. So if rain is coming, it tends to tip it down over the western side of the country, and by the time it gets to us, it's almost sort of burnt itself out really, and then we see very little. This is quite a dry part of the country really here in Norfolk. And blight generally occurs if there's more than a week or so of dampness and rain and the sun doesn't shine. Rain is really good for all the plants, as we know, but so long as the sunshine comes back out again and dries it all off, then we're fine. But when we get those prolonged a week or more of rain and dampness and the sun doesn't shine, that's when blight can show itself. And if you do get blight, and I very much hope that you don't, then the best thing you can do is to cut all the hulms down, which are the stalks to the potatoes, before they actually get into any potatoes that you have down there. And if you haven't seen our potato video when we planted them, I actually said on that video it's one of the top reasons that I plant all of my potatoes at the same time. Because if you plant, for argument's sake, your main crop, which are here for us, toward the end of April, they're not going to be ready until August, September. Whereas we planted these in mid-March. And I have a feeling these are going to harvest sometime around the end of July, beginning of August. So hopefully blight doesn't strike and we get a good crop of potatoes. But should it do, I do know there's potatoes under there because earlier on in this video we were composting all the potatoes up and I can see them pushing through the soil. So it means we have potatoes there. They're certainly not the largest as yet, and they need to grow an awful lot more and bulk up before we get good sized potatoes. But blight normally strikes somewhere in June and July, if it's going to, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of July we'll have decent potatoes under there. Now do let us know how you're getting on with your potatoes and how it's all going, and are they as advanced as ours? Did you put yours in a bit later? Did you put them in at the same time? Do let us know in the comments, because we do love to read all of your comments. And potatoes are one of those things that everybody loves. And you saw earlier in the video that we do have our first earlies. They are there. So it's not going to be too long before we enjoy those. We would love you to subscribe to our channel. We shall see you on the next video.